Okay, recording and transcription have started. So again, good afternoon. My name is James Snyder. Welcome everybody to what we're going to affectionately call our TSAC webinar series, first of which will be on legislative recap and year-end procedures for payments, reconciliation, so on and so forth. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Tim Phelps for our legislative recap.
Thanks, James, and thanks to everybody that's joining us today. Like James said, I'll go through the legislative update, and then I'll hand it over to him to cover the year-end processes. I did receive a few questions through email, so I'll answer those when we get to that point, but feel free to ask any questions by typing them in the chat box. There may be a scenario or a situation that we haven't considered, so it's always good to get your all's feedback. And there may be questions that we can't immediately answer. If not, then we'll research and we'll email a response out to everyone. But so if I go back about a year or so, this time last year, we were discussing one of the largest bills that we ever passed to make changes to the HOPE award amount and expand several programs, including Tennessee Reconnect, the dual enrollment grant. And one of the last amendments to that bill was a bill that would have allowed the HOPE scholarship to be used for pursuit of an advanced degree. That bill did not make it, or that amendment rather, did not make it into the bill, but it was one of the first bills to be introduced this year. And so House Bill 27, Senate Bill 74 becomes effective July 1, and it will allow students to use the HOPE scholarship towards an advanced degree. In the simplest of terms, it replaces the terminating event of receipt of a baccalaureate degree with the receipt of an advanced degree, and we also retain the 5-year terminating event. So this means the new terminating events as of July 1 will be 5 years from the date of initial enrollment or the receipt of an advanced degree. So we are working through how we want to define advanced degree. There is a statutory definition of advanced degree, and it was added back in 2006 when the Math Science Teacher Scholarship was created. So we are reviewing that to see if it fits our needs. If not, then we may look at taking another avenue to define advanced degree. I did receive a couple of questions that I want to go ahead and answer, and these seem to be the most frequent questions that I think we've received over the course of the last few weeks. The first question is, can students who have a year of eligibility remaining begin a second bachelor's degree, or do they have to use it to pursue an advanced degree? And based on our interpretation of the bill and the testimony of the sponsor of the bill, students cannot pursue a second bachelor's degree. They must pursue an advanced degree. The second question that we received, will HOPE eligible students who completed their bachelor's degree in 4 years and that graduated this spring be able to use their fifth year of eligibility towards a master's degree if they started this summer? And the answer to that is no. The effective date of the bill is July 1, 2023. And if a student met a terminating event prior to this date, then the student will not be eligible. I will say this isn't an interpretation that we took lightly. It's a topic that we've had several discussions internally about, and there is no retroactive language to allow these students to use the award for a master's degree. So if a student graduated this past spring or this May, earlier this month, let's say, then those students would not be eligible to begin using the HOPE award towards an advanced degree.
Hey, since I'll be working.
Any questions on?
Like, I don't really know what time I'll get off. I'll just spend for yourselves and I'll figure it out.
So we'll move on.
Yeah, could everyone make sure you're muted? Okay, sorry, someone had muted us. Thanks, Joe.
So the next bill, House Bill 957, Senate Bill 1408, allows private colleges to charge dual enrollment students tuition and fees above the amount of the dual enrollment grant. You can see the award amounts for the first 5 courses and the rate for the for courses 6 through 10. Just wanted to put that up. I'm not sure how many of the private institutions plan to charge an additional amount above tuition and fees. I did have a conversation with with a private school representative, and said from his understanding, not many of the private schools were going to charge above tuition and fees. The only reason I mention this is that there could be an impact to some of the dual enrollment grant students, so I at least wanted to make mention of the bill. Next. So the next bill, House Bill 432, Senate Bill 1220, creates a 5-year pilot teacher loan forgiveness program that will be available to juniors and seniors who are enrolled in educator preparation programs. The award amount would be up to tuition and fees after deducting gift aid. So for purposes of this program, gift aid is similar to the definitions we use for Tennessee Promise and our other last dollar programs, and it would be funding from lottery, TSA, and the Pell Grant. Recipients of this program would be required to teach in a targeted setting, which is defined as the Tennessee public school in a distressed or at-risk county, or a subject area in which there is a critical shortage. The program is, the award is renewable for 3 years. It does require a 4-year teaching commitment, regardless of the number of years that you receive the award. For that targeted setting, whether it's a public school in a distressed or at-risk county or a critical shortage area, both of those would be determined by the Tennessee Department of Education. As a somewhat of a side note, we have been trying to get out of the loan forgiveness program. We have wound down a couple of similar programs in the last couple of years. This program is similar to one of the programs that we just wound down. One of the benefits of this program is there is no interest rate that's charged to the students. So if they decide not to teach or not to finish up their program in the educator preparation program, then there would be no interest charged to the student. They would just be required to repay the principal or the award amount. We are finishing up a application and a flyer, and as soon as those are completed, then we'll distribute those to the 4-year institutions. We'll try to do that to the financial aid offices. We'll also try to do that to the education departments of the institutions as well. And then one last bill that I wanted to mention, it's not a program that would be administered by TSAC. It will be administered by the Department of Health, but it will provide funding to physicians in residency training to help repay any educational loans. The recipient must agree to practice in a health resource shortage area as determined by the Department of Health. There'd be a maximum benefit of $40,000 for up to 5 years. And I mentioned this program because if you know of any students who are pursuing a career in medicine, then this would be worth exploring. We have reached out to the Department of Health for a contact person, but we have yet to hear back from them. But if you are interested in more information about this program, then feel free to reach out to me. Happy to share any information that I have, and definitely can share a contact person when I receive that. I went ahead and reached out to them once again today to see if they have that information, or if they have any status or update on the program. Like I said, just think it's worth mentioning for any of the schools that may have a medical program. So, and any questions or?
We don't have yet any questions in the chat. Do we have any questions from anybody they wanted to maybe jump on the mic? We can unmute you and raise your hand. If we might be able to find you and get you unmuted, or drop a question in the chat.
James, this is Stephen.
There it is. Yes, sir.
Surprise, surprise.
So a couple questions on the advanced degree. So if a student were to come from a community college to MTSU with an associate degree already and stayed on track and graduated in 2 years, then they would have 3 remaining years, right, to pursue an advanced degree. The earlier of completing the advanced degree or 5 years, but in this scenario, 3 years remaining, right?
No, Stephen, they would have used the hope for 2 years at the community college and then 2 years at your institution. So they would have,
Okay.
if they're on track. then they'd
Let
have
me
1
say,
year.
let me say it different, Tim. My bad.
No,
I wasn't thinking. You can earn an associate degree while in high school. They're coming to us from high school and they complete 2 years. They would have 3 remaining years to pursue that advanced degree. True?
that is correct. Yes. Good question.
And the advanced degree does not have to be relational to the bachelor's degree. For instance, my bachelor's degree may have been in biology or something. My advanced degree may be in a totally different subject matter. That would be okay, right?
You are correct.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Well, I have a question. This is Leanne from MTSU. On here, it says 5 years past since initial enrollment at a post-secondary institution. So if someone is a non-trad and they don't become eligible for, the non-trad version until their junior or senior year, do they still get from that point they become eligible non-trad, or from their initial enrollment in college period?
Yeah, good question, Leanne. So it would be the terminating events for the non-traditional state that it's the receipt. And like I mentioned earlier, we're replacing the baccalaureate with advanced degree. So the terminating events for the non-traditional student becomes receive an advanced degree or 5 years from the date the student became a non-traditional student.
Okay, so they use the non-trad rules there instead of these rules.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Good question.
I think I saw Melissa White had her hand raised, but then the hand was pulled down. Do we have a question?
I had the same question about non-trad.
Okay, perfect. Other questions?
Hey, this is Melissa from University of Memphis. If students attend an out-of-state college, so they don't use their hope during their 4 years, they transfer to an in-state school for graduate school, can they still receive hope if their initial eligibility is correct?
Yeah, good question, Melissa. And that's something actually that we're looking at right now. So I can't answer that question. We'll definitely write that down and get a response to you. But everything that we have, and I will at least say the way that we're leaning, everything that we have heard from, like I said, the testimony and the intent of the bill is that those students would not qualify for an award, but we want to at least nail that down before we give a definitive answer.
Okay, and then one more, are they continuous enrollment going to apply? Do they need to start their advanced degree immediately with no gap semester?
Yes, they are required to maintain continuous enrollment.
Okay.
Stay in December.
Okay, awesome. Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, and I will, and Pete just mentioned a good caveat. Essentially, they would have to appeal though.
Yeah.
But the students do have to maintain continuous enrollment. But if they do break in continuous enrollment and just say they graduate in December, their program doesn't start in the spring, it starts next fall, then that student would need to appeal for continuous enrollment. But for the most part, yes, they need to maintain continuous enrollment.
Okay, so I got a text from Leah and from Jana. Thank you to both of you that said there are a number of questions in the chat, and for whatever reason, I am not seeing the chat, so I can't see it on at any point. We will get to the chat, or I will get Leah unmuted.
Do you want me to
so
read those, James?
There she is. Yes. Well, let me let's tackle the ones. I think Larry Vaughn had his hand raised or has his hand raised. Let me go to Larry.
Just tell
and
me
then
when you're ready.
I will. Yep. So Larry, then Ken, then Tammy, and then we'll go to Leah. Go for it, Larry.
Hey, James, thanks, buddy.
Absolutely.
So us, I think the difference for us as a private school doing dual enrollment is we can now charge fees for the first through the fifth classes, where the update last year made it where we could not charge fees for the first through the fifth. Is that my understanding of the difference?
Yeah, Larry, this is Tim. Yes, you're correct. Essentially, the legislation changed the statute to say that the schools that cannot charge above tuition and fees are public schools. So it essentially excluded the private schools in that amendment to the legislation. So that's how you guys have that have the authority to do that.
Okay, our tuition is the same, but we had fees that we would charge. So if you had a lab fee, you took science and you had a $35 lab fee, we used to make you pay that, and we didn't pay it. We actually took care of it ourselves last year. As I understand it, we can charge that again now.
Well, you were able to charge that. You were able to charge those fees to the student. It's just that you could not charge them additional tuition and mandatory fees. And one of y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but the legislation from last year allowed you to charge those lab fees or any of those other fees that were outside of tuition and mandatory fees.
Oh, well, I guess our students got a break.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Sir. All right, Ken, you're up.
Sure. I just wanted to clarify something that I heard a minute ago and make sure, I feel like I'm on the right track, but I want to make sure that I said it out loud. And that is, if we've got a high school student that is graduating high school with an associate's degree and their high school degree, the 5 years starts at that point and does not count any of those 2 years that the student took associate level classes, right? I mean, it's all the 5 years, the maximum eligibility or the terminating criteria starts upon high school graduation and their entry into the secondary institution. No, it does not count those 2 years that they took as the associate's degree. Is that, I mean, I feel like I'm spot on there, but I just want to say it out loud for the group because I thought I heard something different earlier, and I just want to make sure that's accurate.
No, it's 5 years from the date of initial enrollment is the terminating event.
So, but initial
receipt or
enrollment
attain-
would begin after high school graduation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, just making sure.
Yeah. And let me
Sure.
roll back.
Yep.
And Stephen, to make sure that I understood your question, or I think you were asking that student that comes to MTSU with an associate degree, that student took 2 more years to get their bachelor's degree, and you were asking if they had an additional 3 years, correct?
Yes, sir. Again, predicated on they got their associate while in high school.
Yes. Okay.
Same
Okay.
question.
I just want to make sure we were aligned there with the way I answered that question and then Ken's understanding as well. So thank you
Yes,
both.
sir. Yes, sir.
But
All
I
right,
guess
Ken.
the question still is, sorry, but they still have, so that student didn't just have 2 years, the associate is really not counted in that 5 years. Okay, right? Okay,
Yes.
okay, just making sure, because I think I was hearing that basically that student really, once they graduated high school with that associate, they really only had 3 years left of eligibility, but technically they have 5 years upon graduation from high school. So they've got, yeah, okay, all right. Just want to make sure I was
Yeah.
clear on that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think it was the way Stephen worded his question that it took them 2 years after graduation to get their bachelor's. So that student would have 3 years. So the way you worded the question, same question, just kind of
Okay,
asked
okay,
differently.
just making
Yes,
sure.
Was that,
All right.
yeah, perfect.
Okay.
All right,
good
so
deal.
Tammy, I'm going to unmute you if you're ready, and we will take your question. Okay, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. It's not going to let me unmute you. So there we go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Leah, I put mine in the chat too, so if you want to skip mine when you get to it. But at our institution, we have vet school, and the students don't necessarily have to get their bachelor's degree to go to vet school. So sometimes they only come to us for a year and they go to vet school. Would they still be eligible to use the fees in vet school without a bachelor's degree?
Sorry, I put us
Yeah.
on mute for some internal discussion, so forgive me. I've unmuted,
Yeah.
so now I think they're ready to reply.
The provision is already
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the Welling rule.
enrolled,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, and so Tammy, there already is a provision that allows those students to go on if they're not receiving their bachelor's degree and they're going on to a professional degree, then they would still continue to be eligible.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, guys, I'm a bonehead and I have the chat. It was going in reverse of what I anticipated it going. So it was, yeah, I have it all. So we're going to start reading off questions here, Leah. So forgive me for Tim nominated me as our tech support. I have failed us miserably. So this is from Stacy McDonald. Do students need to start their advanced degree immediately after earning their bachelor's degree with no gap semester?
Similar to what we said, those students have to maintain continuous enrollment. If there is a gap for some reason, like we mentioned, the program doesn't start until the following semester, then the student just needs to appeal the continuous enrollment.
Okay. This is from Brittany Heron. This the federal teach grant. Does the federal teach grant count as gift aid toward the Tennessee Future Teaching Scholarship?
It does not.
Does not.
For purposes of gift aid for that program, we're only counting lottery funded programs, TSAA, and the Pell Grant.
This is from Dusty, and okay, so this is in response to Ken and Steven's question. I'll read it just to make sure we're all still on the same page. If they completed their associate degree in high school, shouldn't they still have 5 years of Hope eligibility to get the advanced degree? They would not have used Hope. So it's kind of rephrasing Steven's question in the same manner as Ken phrased it. So yes, if you complete the associate degree in high school, you would then still have your 5 years of eligibility to complete the last, in theory, the last 2 years of the bachelor's degree program, and then 3 years of graduate school of an advanced degree. And then Tammy, we've addressed Tammy's question, so I'll go on from there. Okay, forgive me. I'm not gonna. I apologize. I'm not going to butcher your name on the recording. Is the family medicine loan repayment only for medicine? What about nursing, etc.?
Yeah, it is for physicians only, is the language in the statute. If you want to email me, did you put up my,
I will. Yeah, I had not. Yeah.
but if you want to email me and I can send the link to the legislation, and like I said, when I get the contact information, I can forward that to you as well.
Yeah.
But send me an email at my email address there, and happy to share that with you.
We can add as a response to the question, we'll add the link to the legislation to a slide at the back of the PowerPoints when we're done, when we share those out. So we'll have that available for you guys as well. Let's see as we keep scrolling up. Additional questions. Where is my mouse? My mouse disappear. Leah, do you have any questions? My mouse is malfunctioning. Tech support failing again. Here we are. I got it.
Okay, so you got it?
Yes.
I think you
Yes.
have maybe
Lofton.
a couple that weren't answered, and then you have one that recently came in.
Okay. Okay, so I will say Lofton, I believe we answered your question. So I will, and then Lisa Ingle King, yes, we will email the presentation and the recording once we've finalized additions to the slides of Q&As. Does this apply to non-trad Hope Scholarship as well? Just want to clarify if it is just regular Hope or both Hope and non-trad Hope.
The advanced degree.
Yes.
Sorry,
I
yes.
would assume that is in relation to the advanced degree.
Yes, both Hope and non-traditional Hope are included.
Okay. Okay, I believe that is all the questions that I'm seeing, Leah. Do you have any that you may not, that I may have missed?
Did you get the SEOG part of Tennessee Future Teach Grant or Teach Scholarship? Did you get that one?
We did address Brittany's with the Teach Grant. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I followed 2 of those. So mine are
Yeah.
the opposite of yours, James. So it's hard for me to keep up with where you're at.
I understand.
James, there's a question about, a good question on graduate students are considered full-time at lower credit, meaning lower than 12. For instance, at middle, it's 9 hours. And so the question from Daniela was, will we get a new payment chart for how to prorate? Do we use full-time as defined by grad studies, or do we continue the full-time concept as used for undergrad?
Good question. The full-time enrollment for the graduate students will be determined by your institution.
And then logically, the same with 3/4 and half time.
Yes, correct.
Hey, Leah, are you seeing anything in the chat that's popping up? I think it's malfunctioning on me again because I did not see that question come in. So
I see a couple, James.
go for it.
Okay.
Please.
It says for GPA calculation moving forward, do we use undergraduate and graduate courses together to determine the TELS GPA?
Yes, it would, good question. It would still be all courses attempted after high school graduation. So no change to the GPA calculation. You'll just report the cumulative GPA that you've always been reporting for all courses. There another one, Jen?
Is summer term an optional term for advanced degree?
Yes. Continuous enrollment only requires fall and spring, so summer would be optional.
And the only
Continue to be optional.
okay. SEOG is not part of the Tennessee Future Teach. That's a question.
So I will, if we are following the same methodology we follow for Promise and Reconnect, then it would not, because from a Promise or Reconnect perspective, we're specifically, the language is specific that it says federal Pell, TELS, and TSAA.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I will defer to everyone else, but if we're following the same methodology, then we would not.
Yes, and again, I'll restate that the definition of gift aid for the Future Teacher Scholarship is the same for Promise, same as Promise, Reconnect. It's only those 3 programs. No other programs are considered.
The only other question that I see is says reinstatements will work the same. I'm not sure what reinstatements Ken may be referring to, but that's the only other question I see.
Ken, are you talking about the benchmark, the regain?
Regains, repeats.
Yeah.
So those would, yes, I believe those would function the same.
Yeah, no change to those. Okay. If no other questions, I'll hand it off to James and let him cover the year-end processes. Thanks. And I will say, thanks to everyone. Appreciate all the questions. If you think of another question, again, my email's up on the screen. Feel free to shoot me an email. Happy to respond. And I think we said we would compile all these, put them in a Q&A or something, and get it out to the body. So
yeah, we'll try to get it out. I'd say early next week. Give us a couple days, especially with the chat giving me apparent fits. We will do our best to navigate through all the questions we got, and we do appreciate those. So we'll jump into just a recap of the year-end kind of closeout procedures. We have sent a couple of emails, and I'll likely send another announcement, if not tomorrow, then Monday, just to make sure everyone's on board with knowing what's coming. So year-end payment deadlines. So all programs, with the exception of Hope Access, Tennessee Promise, and Tennessee Reconnect, have a deadline of June 15th, meaning that any payment submitted or must be submitted for processing on or before June 15th. We ask that you submit those by 10 a.m. We have a hard deadline of 11, but knowing that, you know, there's processing time, there's potential lag, we ask that anything be submitted on or before or on or prior by 10 a.m. Central to allow us to be able to process that. In addition to any program, not Hope Access, Promise, or Reconnect, any Tennessee Promise payment or adjustment disbursement that is submitted in FAST as of 10 a.m. on June 12th will be processed. Whether we have received notice that you're seeking the funds or not, this will be done in an effort to limit accruals that we will be then forced to process during our crossover payment period in July. The Office of Finance and Administration really stresses to us to make every effort to limit accruals for which we are responsible for during that crossover payment period. So with that in mind, we will process any payment submitted for Tennessee Promise on Monday, June 12th. That's the final day before the end of the year. And the same can be said for Hope and Hope Access and Tennessee Reconnect as of June 15th. Any payment submitted as of 10 a.m. that morning for those programs will be processed, same as adjustment disbursements, in an effort to limit the amount of accruals for which we may be responsible during that crossover payment period. Okay, so I just want you to know that. I know some of you many of you from a Hope Access, Promise, and Reconnect perspective may be working through processing payments and knowing that you're going to pay during that last payment period in July, but we will go ahead and process those in June. So just as an FYI, you may see an unexpected payment get processed, but I just wanted you to know that was coming. Okay. And we mentioned this in the email, so I just also want to put it out here for you. There is one final payment that we will make in July. We are not certain of the date on that yet, so we've been hesitant to put a date out there. Typically, it is July. It's the second, like the second full week of July. So our anticipation is that we would make one final Tennessee Promise payment on Monday, July 10th, and one final Hope Access, and Tennessee Reconnect payment on July 13th. Please don't lock those days in. It will not be the week of the 3rd. I will tell you that, but it could potentially be the week of the 17th. So our anticipation is the week of the 10th. So let's plan on that, but please don't lock it in just yet. As soon as we know what those dates are, we will share them during that time, or as soon as we know them. It'll probably be in the next week and a half to 2 weeks. And then we'll get that date out for you so that you'll know when we'll make our final payments. And then obviously any payments that you're not able to submit, you could then submit during the retroactive and reconciliation process, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Another thing that came out last year, and this is again some policy that's coming down from the Office of Finance and Administration related to the return of ACH or paper check refunds. We would ask that any refund you're returning to us, please make every effort to have it to us by June 15th or after July 1. There's a quote unquote dead period from the 15th to the 1st, during which our fiscal team and the Office of Finance and Administration are doing year-end closeout, and they have a very strict policy on the receipt and return of ACH funds. So if for some reason you were to send us an ACH and it's invalid and we have to return the ACH, there is a significant amount of paperwork that comes with returning that ACH. So we have been asked to ask you that if you're returning funds, make every effort to have them returned to us by the 15th of June or after the 1st of July. Okay, so I just want to put that out there. If something comes in from the 16th to the 30th and it processes clean, it's fine, but there's always that risk that 50 cents gets miskeyed as a nickel or in reverse, right? And we have to return the entire ACH, and it becomes a pretty big mess. So I just wanted to put that out there as a request to everyone as well. That was July 1 is what they told us. So yeah. So then once the year closes out, and some of you may even already be started on your year-end reconciliation process. So reminders here, a single signed last page of the reconciliation roster is due to TSAC on or before September 1 for each program. And then a slight change in our policies around the reconciliation process. So effective with reconciliation of the 22-23 year, any institution unable to submit that signed reconciliation roster by September 1 or on or before September 1 will then be required to complete and submit a reconciliation exception request form. This form is similar to what you may have seen, you may or may not have seen, but it's similar to a form we've established for exception requests to our 80% certification deadline. We've developed this form. We haven't put it out on the help link or anything like that. So if this comes to pass and you're required to submit the form, Joe Wallace, our colleague who's responsible for our payments, and she's like our payments and adjustments wizard, but she will be in contact if for some reason you're unable to submit that reconciliation roster on or before the deadline, so that you could then submit the exception form. The form is essentially us required, or a request of you to detail what's transpired that may have prevented the reconciliation, and for you to detail what processes and procedures you're putting in place to prevent a delay in reconciliation in years moving forward. And then in addition to your reconciliation roster, you are able to submit a single retroactive payment request for each program if necessary. So we did make a couple of slight alterations to this form. We have updated the password to the secure link. We have stopped sharing. So we will no longer email the form. There were some concerns related to access to the secure link due to the way we were emailing it and sharing the password. So that form and all of the instructions for how to access the form will now only be housed within FAST. So you could only then access them. You log into your FAST account, go to the help link. You would then be able to download the form to load the data and then securely upload it to us. So this must be submitted along with your signed reconciliation roster, or I say with. The reconciliation roster, since it contains no PII, may be submitted by email signed to Joe. The retroactive payment request must be submitted securely because it will contain PII. So you must use the secure file share. There are additional instructions on the form. We've now asked that, and these are the instructions are detailed. So you'll load your file, then you'll email Joe the file name so that Joe knows what file to download specifically. Until an email has been received by Joe, the file will not be downloaded. Again, this is an additional security measure to ensure that you are the individual that sent us the file and that we are only accessing your file. In one additional layer of this process, we noticed a few instances during the retroactive payment process for the 21-22 year where we were identifying errors in requests. And so we have implemented a process whereby once your request is submitted, so you reconcile and you submit, you may or may not submit a retroactive payment request. If you submit a retroactive payment request, until such time as the program administrator has had an opportunity to review the request and approve it for payment, all program payments for 23-24 will be held, and that's specific to that, for each academic year moving forward. So if you submit a payment for one student, there's very little delay. If your request has 50 students and 25 of them may or may not be in error, and it's forcing us to go back and forth with you to determine the accuracy of the request, at that point, in our opinion, your institution is not yet reconciled because we still have concerns related to your retroactive payment request. As such, we will not process and release 23-24 payments until such time as we have approved for payment. Not that it's been paid, because there are additional layers of processing on our end. But once we have approved it for payment, we would consider you reconciled, and at that point we could begin releasing the 23-24 payments in subsequent years as well. Sure. So yes, you can absolutely certify. You can continue your certification process. We just will not release payments until such time as your retroactive payment request has been approved. Okay, and so that, again, short and sweet. I just wanted to verbalize this and have and field any questions you may or may not have. We have sent this twice in email through fast announcements. I'll send it at least probably 2 more times as well, so that you have it in your inbox and are aware of anything. I will say I have not seen any chat come in. Leah, Jana, I'll defer to you guys because it seems to be working for you.
Yeah,
Do we
there's
have
a
any
few more
chat?
questions, James.
Okay.
One, Joe answered, but just so that anybody hears it, they were specifically asking for when some TCAT Edison updates, James. So
Sure.
your students, the question was, when are these students going to be on the reconciliation roster? That's a manual update for us. And so Joe is monitoring that. And as those payments are sent to your institution, she will update those as soon as possible. There were some questions related to the legislative update, James.
Sure. Tim just thought he was off the hook. We're going back.
Yes, you're not done, Tim. So Daniela at UTK, I'm going to ask her easy question first because I think that will, I want to focus on the other question, but her easy question is, graduate students who never received Hope Scholarship can get non-traditional Hope for advanced degrees, ?
Ask that again.
So graduate students who never received Hope Scholarship, can they get non-traditional Hope for an advanced degree? They never received Hope Scholarship.
Yeah, and that's one of the issues that we're still thinking through or considering or contemplating as far as what the intent of the bill was. So I put them in the same category as the students who graduated from an out-of-state school. So that'll be to be determined.
And I think her other question is, if a student graduates this spring, then becomes independent on the FAFSA due to being a grad student, can they go on to receive non-trad for an advanced degree?
No, they have to qualify for non-traditional as in their bachelor's degree.
Okay. The only other question, James, I feel is like probably more of an Aleutian TBR question. Lofton asked if we knew if the TELS mods for Banner, like CESA course, would be updated to include the grad courses for the GPA and attempted hours. I assume TBR and Dean will be working on that, but that would probably be a question for Aleutian and Dean.
Yeah, this is Dean. I'm gonna get with Jonathan and we'll talk through this. And if there are updates need to be made, we'll make them.
Thanks, Dean.
Yeah, I was
You're
just
welcome.
about to call out. I thought Dean was here, so I was just about to call out to him. Okay, do we have any other questions? Anyone want to raise a hand? I can bring you off mute. Leah, Jana, y'all seeing anything? I appreciate the tag team here. All right, let me, I'm going to bring up my information for those who may or may not have it. This is my email address, my phone number. Joe, I apologize in advance. I put your phone number up here as well. Direct office lines for both of us. Joe will just put it on Do Not Disturb now and never answer it again. But if you do have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us. You also have Tim's information on the earlier slide. One last call for any questions. Okay, without seeing any, again, we thank you all so much for your time. And we hope that this was helpful. We'll be in touch soon with the recording and with PowerPoint and added Q&A on the end. So I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day and close out the year smoothly. Thank you, guys.